I had lived 35 years without ever imagining that a single family dinner could unravel everything I once believed about love, loyalty, and blood. The flickering candles on the dining table, the golden glow of the chandelier, the comforting scent of my mother's stew. Each detail crafted like a scene from a memory I longed to believe in. But it was all a performance, a trap dressed in nostalgia, and I walked right into it. My mother had called me 2 weeks earlier, her voice unusually sweet. "Lena, you should come home for dinner. It's been so long since the family gathered." I hesitated, as I always did when it came to them. After years of enduring their selective love, poured out only when convenient, I had learned to guard myself. But still, a fragile part of me, buried beneath boardrooms and San Francisco city lights, wanted to believe maybe this time was different. So, I made the drive to Sacramento, carrying more hope than I realized. It shattered the moment my younger brother Chase, leaning smugly in his chair like a CEO in training, said, "To avoid misunderstandings later, Mom and Dad want you to know now." He exchanged a glance with Sky, our youngest sibling, who smirked as she played with a perfect curl of blonde hair. I froze, fork midair, suddenly unable to taste the food my mother had so painstakingly prepared. "What?" I asked, my voice brittle. My mother's sigh was soft, but the blow that followed was merciless. "Your father and I finalized our will. This house, the lakefront villa in Tahoe, everything we own. It's going to Chase and Sky." Her words sliced through me, leaving silence in their wake. I turned to my father, searching for any sign that this was a cruel joke, but he merely stared into his wine, offering no contradiction. "Why?" I finally managed. Chase shrugged, amusement dancing in his voice. "Because you don't need it, right? You have your own company, your own house, your life together. Sky and I need the support more." Support? The word snapped something inside me. I stared at them. Sky, who hadn't held a job longer than 6 months, and Chase, the eternal college student who had changed majors more times than I could count. My voice trembled, not with weakness, but with years of suppressed rage. "Support? What exactly do you mean? I've paid your bills. I covered the mortgage when you were behind. I paid for the Tahoe renovations. $40,000. And now you're telling me none of it counts because I don't need anything?" My mother's arms folded tightly across her chest, her voice cool. "Lena, don't overreact. Your father and I have thought this through. You're successful. Chase and Sky deserve a foundation." I laughed, sharp and humorless. A foundation? Or a reward for their dependence? Sky leaned forward, eyes gleaming. "Oh, so you've been keeping tabs. That's disappointing, Lena. You're rich. Do you really need to be so stingy?" My gaze snapped to hers, and in that moment, I saw it clearly. The entitlement, the manipulation, the years of gaslighting masked as family duty. "No, Sky," I said, my voice low but cutting. "This isn't stinginess. This is fraud. This is exploitation. And if you think I'll let this go quietly, you've underestimated me." The dinner was over, but the reckoning had just begun. My mother slammed her palm on the table, rattling the crystal glasses as if the sound alone could silence me. "Enough, Lena. Stop acting like a victim. You always think about money. Always." Her voice was sharp, trembling with faux righteousness. "We didn't do this because we don't love you. We did it because we love all our children." Love. The word struck me not with warmth, but with a cold, searing clarity. Across the table, Chase leaned back, smug in his tailored shirt, arms folded like a judge delivering a sentence. "You're acting like a child who just had their favorite toy taken away. Everyone here is an adult, Lena. You should learn to accept reality." But his words didn't infuriate me. Not anymore. They confirmed what I had known deep down for years. This wasn't a family. Not for me. I wasn't their daughter. I was their wallet, their emergency fund, their get-out-of-jail-free card. Slowly, deliberately, I placed both hands on the edge of the table, feeling the soft fabric of the tablecloth bunch beneath my grip. I inhaled, letting the anger settle into something colder, something clear. And when I looked up, my gaze was steel. I saw them now, truly saw them. My mother, who only called when something needed fixing. My father, always quiet, always complicit. Chase, who'd bled my accounts dry with half-finished degrees and vague ambitions. Sky, draped in designer brands she hadn't earned, her smirk as polished as her manicured nails. So this is it, I said, voice steady, laced with the bitterness of 1,000 swallowed disappointments. You've made your choice, but tell me, what about everything I've done for this family? What about the mortgage I paid off? The Tahoe villa I renovated? The bills I covered without hesitation? My mother's arms crossed tighter. All you ever talk about is money, Lena. No amount is ever enough for you, is it? My throat tightened. Never enough? I echoed softly. I gave without keeping score. I gave when you had nothing. I gave because I believed family meant showing up when it mattered. And now you're telling me I'm not even part of it? Sky shrugged with a smirk. No one forced you. You just liked playing the hero. That one hit like a slap. I met her eyes, searching for remorse, but found only ridicule. You're right. No one forced me. I helped because I thought we were a family, because I thought love meant sacrifice. But I was wrong. I was the only one sacrificing. The rest of you just kept taking. Chase scoffed again, his words like nails dragging across glass. Still throwing a tantrum over a house and a will? My heart pounded, but my voice was unwavering. I've given nearly $500,000 over the past 10 years. I put off travel, a better home, investments, because I believed in us. And now I'm called greedy because I want to be treated with basic fairness? My mother sighed like I was some disappointment she no longer had energy for. Family is about love, Lena, not money. I laughed then, hollow and heartbroken. If love was really what this family was built on, then why does it only seem to flow one way? Why does it only count when it costs me something? The silence that followed was dense, suffocating. And in that silence, something inside me shifted for good. They had built a fortress with my generosity, then barred me from it. But I wouldn't beg to be let back in. Not anymore. Why am I always the one making sacrifices? The question echoed through the dining room like a loaded gun, but no one answered. They never did. The silence that followed wasn't guilt. It was indifference. They didn't believe they'd exploited me. They were just irritated that I dared to demand fairness. The cold realization wrapped around my chest like a vice. They would never change. I stood slowly, the screech of the chair legs slicing through the tension like a blade. I've heard enough, I said, my voice like ice. My mother's eyes narrowed. What did you just say? I met her gaze without flinching. I'm done. I have no more obligations to any of you. Chase chuckled, but his voice cracked around the edges. You're seriously cutting off your own family over this? I didn't blink. Yes, and soon you'll know exactly what that means. I turned, heading for the door, but Mom's voice shot out behind me, shrill and desperate. Lena, what the hell are you doing? You can't walk away over a little disagreement. Family sticks together. I paused at the threshold, glanced back and smiled. Not warmly, but with the cold satisfaction of someone finally choosing themselves. "This isn't a disagreement," I said. "It's betrayal." She tried again, a final stab. "If you walk out that door, don't ever think about coming back." But I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I already had all the answers I needed. Driving back to San Francisco, the tightness in my chest gave way to something heavier. Something that didn't ache, but weighed. My mind replayed every bitter word, every smug smirk from Chase, every flicker of mockery in Sky's eyes, every silence from my father that screamed complicity. That house, once the symbol of family, was nothing more than a graveyard for everything I'd given. When I got home, I dropped my bag, poured myself a glass of wine, and collapsed onto the couch. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I was simply empty, drained. But when I opened my banking app, something shifted. $2,100 a month. That's what I'd been handing them every month for years. $1,500 for their mortgage, $600 for utilities, for power, water, repairs. And that didn't include the extras: Chase's tuition, luxury gifts for holidays, family trips I paid for entirely. I had bled for them financially, emotionally, while they sat at that table and called me greedy. I hovered my thumb over the button, then tapped. Cancel recurring payments. The screen flashed. Successfully canceled. And just like that, a chain broke. A chain I hadn't realized had wrapped around my neck. The next morning, the fallout began. My phone lit up. Mom calling. I ignored it. Again. Then again. On the fifth attempt, I silenced the phone and made myself coffee. Calm. Collected. Free. Only then did I open her voicemails. Her voice trembled with disbelief and blame. "Lena, I can't believe you did this. Do you even understand how much the house is struggling? Don't be selfish. Family helps each other. Call me back." But I wouldn't. Because I had finally chosen to help myself. And I wasn't looking back. I set my cup down, closed my eyes, and exhaled slowly, knowing she must have found out by now. Minutes later, my phone buzzed again. This time, my father. I stared at the screen, feeling a dull ache in my chest. There was a time I would have answered without hesitation, but that time had passed. I let it go to voicemail. When I finally played the message, his voice was calm, rehearsed. "Lena, you need to reconsider. Your mother is very upset. You can't just cut ties over a small misunderstanding. We're family." I let out a dry, bitter laugh. Family? If I truly mattered, why had no one ever stood by me? That afternoon, Sky called. I declined. A second later, her barrage of texts began. "Absolutely pathetic, Lena. You're selfish. Do you think you're better than us? If you didn't want to help, you should have just said so. You've destroyed this family. Congratulations." I laughed again, colder this time. Did they really believe I was the problem? Then Chase called. Against my better judgment, I answered. "What?" I asked. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" He snapped. "Taking back what's mine," I replied. "You're disgusting," he spat. "You cut off Mom and Dad just because they didn't leave you anything. You're nothing but a greedy leech." I kept my voice steady. "This isn't about money, Chase. It's about respect. Something none of you ever gave me." "You venomous snake," he growled. "You think you can abandon this family without consequences? Just wait." He hung up before I could respond, and a chill crawled down my spine. They weren't going to stop. I stared at my screen, at the names I'd carried for decades like a chain. Mom, Dad, Sky, Chase. Not one apology, not one word of regret. Just blame, entitlement, threats. One by one, I blocked them. Their names vanished. In the silence that followed, I felt something I hadn't in years. Peace. That night, I sipped my wine and smiled. I was finally free. 3 weeks passed like a quiet revolution. Without their calls, their demands, their bitterness, I rediscovered who I was. I worked with clarity, slept deeply, laughed without guilt. But peace doesn't last forever. Not when you're dealing with people who believe they own you. On a Friday afternoon, just before a client meeting, my phone lit up. A single message from my mother. Lena, the family is having an important meeting. You need to be there. 7 p.m. at the old house. This is not an invitation. It's your responsibility. I closed my eyes and the irritation flared hot in my chest. This wasn't reconciliation. It was control disguised as duty. I could have ignored it. I should have. But some part of me, the foolish ember that still believed in redemption, wanted to see what new game they were playing. I replied with one word. Fine. At 7 sharp, I pulled into the familiar driveway. Chase's BMW and Sky's pink Mini Cooper were already parked like trophies of entitlement. As I stepped onto the porch, my mother opened the door almost instantly, her face pulled into a smile so tight it might crack. Lena, she said sweetly, you finally decided to come home. I looked past her, into the house I once paid for, into the heart of the betrayal I would never forget, and I braced myself. Because this time I hadn't come as their daughter. I had come as their reckoning. I stepped inside, and the air felt heavier than I remembered, as if the walls themselves were bracing for the performance about to unfold. My father sat stiffly in the center of the living room, his expression grim and rehearsed. Chase and Sky slouched on the couch like victors awaiting a concession, smug satisfaction flickering in their eyes. Something was off. I sat down slowly, legs crossed, arms folded, my voice flat. So, what is this about? My father cleared his throat, gaze cold and calculating. We need to resolve this tension. I let out a dry laugh. Tension? You mean the part where I stopped funding your lives? My mother tried a gentler tone, laced with manipulation. Lena, you overreacted. We only wanted what was best for you. Chase scoffed. Did you even think before cutting us off? Do you know how childish and selfish that was? My jaw tightened. Childish? Selfish? My voice dropped, sharp as glass. I've kept this family afloat for over 10 years. If selfishness lives anywhere, it's in this room, and it's not in my seat. Sky leaned forward, voice soft and sugar-coated with venom. You're just mad you didn't get the inheritance. That's all this is. The fury inside me shifted from heat to ice. I stood, spine straight, gaze like a blade. I came here hoping you'd grown up, realized what you did, maybe even apologized. My laugh was short and hollow. But no, you're still parasites, entitled, ungrateful, and I'm done. My mother rose, tone sharpened into a threat. If you walk out that door, don't expect to be welcomed back. I paused at the threshold, hand on the doorknob, and turned to meet her eyes with unflinching calm. I never felt welcome here in the first place. Then I walked out, closing the door on them, and on years of betrayal, without a second glance. Driving home, my pulse thundered beneath my skin. I didn't know how they'd retaliate, but I knew they wouldn't let this end cleanly. Still, I wasn't prepared for what I found when I arrived. My apartment door was sealed shut, encased in hardened grayish-white foam, expanding insulation foam, a deliberate act, a message. My breath caught, not from shock, but from cold, focused rage. I pulled out my phone, launched the security camera app, and scrubbed through the footage. There he was, Chase, hoodie drawn up, baseball cap low, holding a can of foam like a weapon and grinning like a child with a stolen toy. He sprayed every inch of my door with gleeful precision, sealing my home behind layers of chemical spite. My hands curled into fists. Did he really think this would break me? That I'd come crawling back, begging to be accepted again? That I'd be humiliated into submission? He'd made a grave mistake. With chilling calm, I saved the footage and took screenshots. Close-ups of his smirk, his build, the unmistakable posture of someone who thought they were above consequences. Then I called the police. 30 minutes later, an officer stood before me, kind-eyed but businesslike. I showed him everything. The footage, the screenshots, the motive. "Would you like to file a formal complaint?" he asked. I met his gaze, voice steady and clear. "Yes, I'd like to press charges." Because this wasn't just vandalism, it was years of abuse finally boiling over. And this time, I wasn't backing down. He asked with hesitant neutrality, clearly hoping I'd let things slide, but I only laughed. Cold. Sharp. "I didn't call you here for a friendly chat." He nodded grimly and opened his notebook to begin the report. "Chase, that's your brother, right?" I met his gaze, my voice ice. "Not anymore." The next morning, my phone lit up with a familiar number. "Lena, sweetheart," my father began, voice carefully measured. "Does this really have to go this far?" I didn't waste time. "Are you calling to ask me to drop the charges?" He hesitated. "It's not that. Chase was just upset. He didn't mean any harm." I scoffed. "He sealed my door shut, Dad. What if I had a child inside? A pet? An emergency meeting I couldn't miss?" Silence. He tried to intimidate me, and now he's going to learn what consequences look like. My father's voice sharpened. "Do you really want to push this that far?" I replied coolly. "Chase did this. If he didn't want to face the fallout, he shouldn't have acted like a reckless idiot." There was a pause. Then the question came. "What do you want to drop the charges?" My answer was immediate. $33,000. He sputtered. "What?" "That's for the damage, my legal fees, and the stress of being harassed in my own home. A bargain, really." "This is extortion," he snapped. I let out a dark laugh. "No, Dad. This is called accountability." "Chase doesn't have that kind of money." "Then you and Mom can help him. You've been bailing him out his whole life. Why stop now?" His voice cracked. "Lena, you're tearing this family apart." My tone was ice. "No, Dad. This family tore itself apart years ago." 3 days later, a wire transfer hit my account. $33,000 from my parents' joint account. No apology. No message. No excuses. Just silence. Even Sky, usually quick to throw verbal knives, kept her mouth shut. They thought the money would be the end of it. That I'd vanish. Pacified. But what they didn't understand was that the money wasn't the point. It never was. Standing in front of my repaired door, I ran my fingers along the smooth wood, sipping a glass of wine with a smirk. For the first time, they had been forced to pay for their cruelty. They could call me ungrateful, cold, a traitor. But they could no longer force me to serve them. I had won. Or so I thought. But the real battle came next. They couldn't handle losing control, so they turned to manipulation's oldest weapon: shame. It began with a barrage of messages from relatives I barely remembered. Aunt Susan wrote, "Lena, I'm very disappointed in you. Your parents sacrificed so much." Uncle Mark chimed in, "Don't let money make you heartless. Family is forever." Cousin Rachel's guilt-drenched text read, "They're about to lose their home. Don't you feel any remorse?" I read each one with a growing mixture of amusement and contempt. It was obvious who orchestrated this campaign. Mom. Unable to win with reason or truth, she crafted a sob story, painting herself as the selfless mother abandoned by her greedy daughter. She twisted the narrative until I became the villain, cold, unfeeling, money-obsessed. What none of them knew, what none of them cared to ask, was the truth. That I had spent over a decade paying their bills, covering their debts, renovating their homes, and buying their silence. I hadn't abandoned them. They had drained me dry, and were furious I finally said no. For over a decade, I had quietly carried the weight of their lives, paying their mortgage, covering their bills, and funding Chase and Sky's endless string of failures, without ever asking for anything in return. I wasn't abandoning them now. I was walking away from being used. That night, I opened my laptop, logged into Facebook, and began to type. I rarely posted, but this time was different. I didn't need their love anymore. I just needed the truth to be louder than their lies. My fingers moved with quiet fury, crafting a message that would leave no room for distortion. I tried to be a good daughter. For over 10 years, I paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to support my parents. Mortgage, bills, even my siblings' tuition. I never asked for anything back, because I believed family meant sacrifice. But when my parents finalized their will, they left everything to Chase and Sky. When I asked why, they told me, "You have a career. You don't need it." When I pushed back, they called me selfish. When I stopped supporting them, they called me a traitor. Now they're spreading lies, claiming I abandoned them and left them homeless. Here's the truth. They're not losing their home. They're losing their free ride. I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm sharing this for anyone who's been used and guilt-tripped by their own family. Setting boundaries is not betrayal. Refusing to be exploited is not ungrateful. Sometimes family isn't who shares your blood. It's who respects your soul. I've walked away, and I have no regrets. I hit post. Within an hour, it had gone viral. Hundreds of shares, thousands of comments. Support flooded in. Strangers and friends alike sharing similar stories. You're not alone. I admire your strength. You've done more than enough. Of course, the critics came too. Family is still family. Don't air your dirty laundry. Attention-seeking. But I didn't flinch. I had expected this. 3 hours later, my mother called. I picked up, calm and unshaken. "Lena, what the hell are you doing?" she snapped. "Telling the truth," I replied evenly. "You're destroying this family's reputation," she hissed. "No, Mom. You did that the moment you decided to paint me as the villain." Her silence burned louder than her rage. "You're going to regret this." I smiled. "No, Mom. You will." I hung up, and for the first time I felt weightless. They couldn't hide the truth anymore. I had taken back my voice. 3 months passed. The quiet was almost unsettling. No more manipulation, no more guilt, no more relentless demands. At first, the silence felt like grief. After all, even a toxic family leaves behind a phantom ache. But eventually I realized it wasn't grief. It was peace. I had mistaken bondage for belonging, and now I was finally free. I poured my energy into work, reinvesting in myself, my passions, my future. With no one draining my bank account, my money was truly mine. I enrolled in a photography class, something I'd always wanted to do but never had time for. I traveled. Paris, Kyoto, Machu Picchu. I stood atop ancient ruins, drank coffee beside the Seine, captured sunsets through my camera lens. And for once, I wasn't missing anything. I was no longer living for anyone else. The inheritance they dangled over my head like a leash? I didn't need it. I had something more valuable now: freedom, clarity, and self-respect. And while I no longer followed their lives, whispers still reached me from time to time. Rumors of financial strain, public embarrassment, dwindling support from the extended family. It wasn't revenge I sought, just the truth. And the truth, once spoken, had done exactly what I needed it to do. It set me free, and left them standing in the ashes of the stories they tried to use to control me. A year after walking away from the people who had drained me for decades, the consequences of their greed had finally come full circle. My mother, once draped in designer labels and dripping with judgment, now worked quietly as a waitress in a small diner, her former co-worker remarking that the commanding woman she once was had vanished. The spa appointments, the glamorous shopping sprees, all gone. My father, who had remained silent while I shouldered the weight of the entire family, now labored in a construction supply store, stripped of the comfort I had once funded. Chase, who mocked me when I walked away, found himself unemployed with no one left to bankroll his failing startups. Sky, still lost in her delusions of influencer fame, now struggled to curate a lifestyle with no one footing the bill for her Instagram-worthy vacations or luxury outfits. My entire family was unraveling, but I felt no guilt. I had given them every opportunity to do right by me. It wasn't my absence that ruined them. It was their entitlement, their refusal to see me as anything but their personal ATM. And while they struggled, I thrived. A year later, Eli entered my life, not with grand promises, but with quiet presence. I wasn't looking for love. I had stopped searching for validation. But Eli saw me, not for what I could offer, but for who I truly was. We met during a hiking trip with mutual friends. At first, he was just another polite stranger, but he listened, really listened, with no ulterior motives. He didn't need anything from me. He didn't expect me to prove my worth. For the first time, I felt chosen, not used. Standing on my apartment balcony that December evening, the cold air brushing against my cheeks, I stared out over the city lights and felt something I hadn't in years. Peace. No one controlled me anymore. No one manipulated me. The chains that once bound me to a toxic version of family had been severed the day they cut me out of the will, and I had mistaken that betrayal for loss. But it wasn't. It was a gift, the greatest they'd ever given me. Lena's story is more than just one of family betrayal. It's the journey of someone who believed that love could be earned through sacrifice, that loyalty would be repaid in kind. But what she discovered is a truth many of us struggle with. Sometimes the people who should protect us are the ones who exploit us most. And setting boundaries isn't an act of cruelty. It's the beginning of healing. Sometimes losing your family is the first step toward finding your freedom, your happiness, and your real people. What do you think about Lena's story? Have you ever experienced something similar or known someone who has? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful, raw, and real stories about life, love, and letting go.